All right, we have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include a surprising early vote turnout in the great state of Pennsylvania this morning. Bar none, the most important state this election, carrying 19 electoral votes and likely, very likely, will make or break this election. Well, the early vote numbers are in. The Kamala Harris team is confused, upset, and shaken reportedly by the grim results that they're seeing thus far in Pennsylvania. Their delta between this election versus Biden's 2020 numbers and their 2016 numbers are just staggering, grim numbers for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania so far with the early vote. We're going to look at it all, and should Trump pull it off? Should he win the 2024 election tonight outright? Do the Dems have some tricks up their sleeve? Will they decide not to certify this election on J6 2025? There's been rumors floating around DC all week about this. And last night on CNN, Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, appeared to confirm as much. We have the tape. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So the Trump team is tapping themselves on the back this morning on Tuesday morning, election morning. Reports coming in already that they are very happy in Trump HQ after seeing the final tally for the Pennsylvania early vote. And they should be, because their numbers are solid. Here's Mark Alperin explaining Harris's grim early vote numbers early this morning. Roll the tape.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania, okay? This is a state where the early vote matches, as I said, what we've seen other places. Disappointing turnout in Philadelphia. Go ahead and put up the Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania chart, please. Okay. Not enough vote coming from Philadelphia. Lots of votes coming from rural. So this chart looks at 2020, 2022, and 2024 in the early vote, the mail-in vote. And the most important thing I think to look at is where it says GOP returns and Dem returns. So you see in 2020, the GOP returns were 580,000 and the Democratic return ballots were 1.6 million. Okay. Almost over a million vote difference on the early vote. And then go to the first column and you see the Republican returns are slightly higher, almost 600,000, but the Democratic returns are down 600,000 from 2020. Okay. It's very hard for me to see how she's going to win Pennsylvania if you're just looking at this. If you're just looking at this, it's very hard to see.
And the fact that the early Philadelphia vote so far below where it was the last two elections is significant. It means that if Harris can't get her voters out in Philly today, if they don't come out in big numbers, it could very well be a blowout in Pennsylvania. Elon Musk writing on X this morning, and look, Elon is basically running Trump's ground game there, writing below are the R-D early vote deltas in swing states before tomorrow. Republican turnout on election day is usually much higher than Democrats, so any state currently leaning R in early voting is very likely to side with Trump. Pennsylvania, while still leaning D, has a massive turnout on election day. If the same number vote in person for Trump this time versus last, he will win by around 500,000 votes, which means a landslide, he says. So look, Elon's saying Trump could win Pennsylvania by as much as 500,000 votes. That's a huge number. Remember 2020, Trump came up short by around 70,000 votes. That's it. So 500,000 would be a landslide. No other way to put it. A complete blowout. And you could see the delta here in Pennsylvania. Look at this. Pennsylvania is a party registration state. So that's why we have these numbers. Republican early voters who already turned out and cast their ballots this election, only around 400,000 below Dems. In 2020, by day of election, Republicans were lagging by around 1 million votes, more than that. That's a massive turnout job. One of the best we've ever seen Republicans perform in Pennsylvania. And that's partly due to Elon Musk and also partly due to Dems doing a terrible job turning out the vote there. What do you know? When you have a terrible candidate, people aren't excited to vote. And Kamala Harris is not a popular candidate. And it has the Obama groupies, Obama world, worried. Very, very worried. Watch this.
I'm worried about is you're counting on some women who are independent Republican women to come out and vote for Harris. Is that going to materialize? Is the gender gap going to be what you need it to be? Are minority voters going to come out in the numbers of African American voters in particular, and are you going to get the margins that you want there? So there are a lot of open questions. This race is filled with uncertainty.
Now, heading up north, we covered the crazy early vote numbers coming in out of the Granite State yesterday, the great state of New Hampshire. Only 4 electoral votes, but it could play a role here, and we still believe Trump has a real shot at flipping the state. It's going to be hard, but it's possible. Early this morning, the first votes were counted there. The district of Dixville-Notch, New Hampshire, closed their polls this morning with a population of just 6 people. Very, very small city, but the candidate this district chooses almost always goes on to win the election. In 2020, Dixville-Notch also had 6 voters, and guess what? Trump received 0 votes, and Biden received 6 votes. Trump got no votes there in 2020, and he went on to lose. Then in 2016, Trump received 5 votes, and Hillary got 1. And what happened? Trump went on to win the election big in 2016. So what happened in Dixville-Notch this morning? Roll the tape.
All right, we ready for president?
Let's listen
3
for a few
for
more
Kamala
moments.
Harris, 3 for Donald Trump. Following the national trends.
There
For
you have
governor, 1 for Joyce
it.
Craig
It is
and
now official.
There you have it.
Dixville
It's gonna
be
Notch,
reading.
New Hampshire, the first in the nation ballots cast on election day. It is now official in Dixville-Notch, a tie. 3 votes for former President Donald Trump, 3 votes for Vice President Kamala Harris. It just underscores, as Gary Tuchman was saying, how divided the nation is and how close this 2024 presidential election is.
Then yesterday, one day before the election, Joe Rogan comes out and makes an official endorsement. Trump, he's wanted the Rogan endorsement for a while now. When he was on the Rogan podcast last week, he told Joe then, "You should really endorse me, Joe. It would mean a lot if you did." Well, yesterday, while Elon Musk was finishing up his 2.5, 3-hour long podcast there, Rogan, he made headlines officially endorsing Donald J. Trump for president, following up on X because you know the media, corporate media, trying to claim it wasn't a real endorsement. It was a weak endorsement, claiming that Joe Rogan didn't really endorse Trump yesterday. So what did Joe do? He went on X and clarified, writing this: "The great and powerful Elon Musk, if it wasn't for him, we'd be screwed. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll ever hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Donald Trump." Enjoy the podcast, everyone. So a lot appears to be going right for the former president. So let's game this out then. What if Trump does win tonight? Let's say he wins in a landslide. Hypothetical, obviously, but what happens next? Do Democrats, do they have some tricks up their sleeve? Look, Dems are sneaky people. Well, according to Nancy Pelosi, yes, they do. Former Speaker of the House let slip what she wants to happen if Trump wins tonight. Now, before we play this, let me just say there's been rumors going around about this in D.C. all week. People have been talking about this scenario for months, but in D.C., the rumors have been all over the place. How the Dems plan on disqualifying Trump in Congress by not certifying the election on J6 2025, which is funny because they say that's what Trump did last J6, and it made him a threat to democracy. Well, up until last night, these were just rumors started by sitting Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Democrat. If you didn't see that, there's this clip of him talking about this. Watch what Congressman Raskin had to say about it. Then afterward, we'll play Nancy Pelosi last night. Roll the tape.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job.
Yeah, he basically just laid it all out there. I have no idea if he knew he was being recorded, but that's as clear as day. They've thought about this. They have no plans on letting Trump get back in the Oval Office. So as much as the media tried to blow this off and claim it was all nonsense, they can't anymore. They are now coming out with it publicly after last night when Nancy Pelosi went on CNN and said this.
Tomorrow is a great day. It's a day of democracy in our country. And for us, Election Day is not just Election Day. It's the weeks leading up to it, what happens that day, and what happens in the days following it.
Will attempt to undermine the election. I just want to play a quick clip of what she said.
You think Speaker Johnson will do the right thing?
No, he won't. And I think that's why it's so important that the Republicans not be in the majority come January of 2025.
You were obviously Speaker on January 6, 2021. First of all, how concerned are you about that on Johnson? And what options would be available, if he in fact is still the Speaker of the House on January 6th of next year to try and gum up the certification of a Harris victory, if there is one?
Hakeem Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House. I don't know what the margin will be, but I know that we have the votes to win the House. I think it would be shameful if the current Speaker were to say that he's not going to accept the results of the election. When I was there 3.5 years ago, says she, self-servingly, they told me you're going to have to accept the results of the Electoral College in an undisclosed location silently and this and that. I said, no, we're not. We're on the floor of the House to show the American people and the world that democracy has prevailed, and this and they failed this insurrection caused by the former president of then the president of the United States. So Hakeem will be the Speaker. That will happen. That is what I spend a great deal of my time on, in addition to the electing Kamala Harris, President of the United States. I feel very confident about that, but the public has to pay attention. President Lincoln, let the record show, I'm quoting a Republican president, said public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. The American people have to weigh in if they try not to accept the results of the election.
And now that Nancy Pelosi has come out publicly about this, it's opened the door for the corporate press to just dive all over this. Axios writing yesterday, Scoop, Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries duel over certifying 2024 election, writing, quote, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries are at each other's throats over which party can truly be trusted to certify the 2024 election. Basically, the Dems have no plan to let Trump become the 47th president. They don't want him to be president. If they have any means to prevent that, you can bet they're going to try. They'll do everything they can to prevent it from happening. That's the bottom line. And things are only heating up. In Washington State and Oregon, the governors activated the National Guard yesterday. Washington Governor Jay Inslee, a Democrat, announced that the National Guard will be deployed to assist local police in maintaining order in case of election unrest, which is odd considering Washington State's as far away from D.C. as you can get. Anyways, all we can do right now is get out and vote. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to do that. Bring a friend, bring a family member. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.